Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new video. Now if you're a comic book fan like myself, then it's very likely you would have heard of Batman and Robin, Captain America and Bucky, The Flash and Kid Flash, Aquaman, Aqualad, the Marvel family, and of course Wonder Woman and Wonder Girl. Naturally there are many more crime fighting teams out there, but can you name them all? Because I sure can't. There are possibly hundreds of different characters in comics you and I have yet to discover, but here's a list of some lesser known comic book heroes and their sidekicks that I have put together. So sit back, relax and enjoy as we explore some of the rarer characters. For our first duo, we have to go all the way back to 1940 and to a publisher known as Fawcett Comics, which produced a comic book series known as WOW Comics. WOW Comics featured stories surrounding characters such as Mary Marvel, Phantom Eagle and Commando Yank. It also featured Mr. Scarlet and Pinky the Whiz Kid, costume crime fighters who fought to keep their city safe. They each wore red costumes, which perhaps is a reflection of their superhero names. Although a crime fighter by night, Mr. Scarlet is known as Brian Butler in his civilian identity and is a district attorney. Ironically though, due to his crime fighting as Mr. Scarlet, levels of crime in the city are low, so his job is often in trouble as there aren't many cases to prosecute. He is said to have great acrobatic and close combat skills. Mr. Scarlet isn't alone in his quest to rid the city of crime, however. He is joined by his adoptive son Pinkerton Butler, also known as Pinky the Whiz Kid. Pinky is also a keen athlete and has good investigative skills that he learns from his father. The story of Mr. Scarlet and Pinky is quite similar to that of Batman and Robin. Both adults had adopted wards who fought as his sidekicks, and also all four used utility belts which included handy gadgets to aid them in their fight against crime. WOW Comics would run for 69 issues, but it didn't end there for our Scarlet-clad duo as they appeared in several spin-off comics, which would eventually culminate in Pinky taking over the mantle of his father and becoming the new Mr. Scarlet. Next up, we have the Star-Spangled Kid, and I'm not talking about the Courtney Whitmore version. In fact, there are several Star-Spangled Kids, and I want to talk about the original one, Sylvester Pemberton. Sylvester became the Star-Spangled Kid in order to fight the Nazis. This was a similar theme in a lot of crime-fighting comic books in this period. Joining Sylvester is his sidekick Stripesy, and what is unique about this duo is that Sylvester is a teenage superhero, with Stripesy being the adult sidekick, quite the opposite of most crime-fighting duos. Each donned costumes to represent the American flag, with the Star-Spangled Kid wearing the stars and Stripesy being the stripes, needless to say. Both were excellent acrobats and were well versed in hand-to-hand combat, as are the majority of costume heroes featured in these comics. The Star-Spangled Kid first debuted in issue 40 of Action Comics and would go on to feature in many more. He later grew up to become the hero Skyman. Now if you're a dog person, then I apologise for featuring this next duo, Catman and his sidekick Kitten. Catman first appeared in Crash Comics and then had his own comic book run, Catman Comics. Also known as David Merriweather, he became Catman after losing his parents at a young age, when bandits attacked their caravan while travelling in Burma. He was then raised by a tigress and ended up with the abilities of a cat, including vision, strength, agility, and even having 9 lives. His story can be related to how Mowgli was raised by animals in a Jungle Book. He later returned to the US and donned a costume and enlisted in the US Army. His sidekick Katie also lost her parents at a young age and was being raised by her uncle, who turned out to be a criminal. After Catman helped bring her uncle to justice, Katie donned a costume and became Kitten, his new sidekick. Although they wear similar costumes, it's easy to confuse Catman for the DC Batman villain also known as Catman, who teamed up with Catwoman on occasion. However, his name was Thomas Blake and not a hero like David Merriweather. The adventures of Catman and Kitten would continue for a 32-issue run before being cancelled. So moving on, we all know that cats like to chase birds, but it's not likely they will catch this next pair, the team of American Eagle and Eaglet. American Eagle and Eaglet are Tom Strong and Bud Pierce. Whilst working for the government in top secret experiments, Tom develops powers after being exposed to a black ray. These include super strength and flight. Tom later follows a plot by Nazis and makes himself a costume to strike fear into the heart of all criminals, thus becoming the American Eagle. The American Eagle later takes on young Bud after the boy saves his life after he is struck by a car. Bud dons a similar costume and becomes Eaglet. The majority of the duo's adventures can be found in a comic series known as Exciting Comics, but also in America's Best Comics. Also appearing in America's Best Comics is our next duo, a team that really do strike terror into the hearts of their enemies. This is Bob Benton, the Black Terror, and Tim Rowland, Kid Terror, together known as the Terror Twins. The Terror Twins featured heavily in exciting comics alongside American Eagle and Eaglet, but they also had their own comic book series entitled The Black Terror. Bob was a pharmacist and Tim worked as his assistant. The two were working on a new formula when Tim adds the wrong chemical. The resultant fumes are inhaled by the duo, which grants them super strength and agility. Deciding to use their new powers for good, they don black costumes and aim to strike terror into the hearts of criminals. I have to say guys, I think these black costumes are pretty cool, and I wouldn't mind one myself. Not that I'd be as strong and agile as this pair, of course. Now, I wouldn't blame you if you're attracted to our next duo because attraction is the key word here. Let's take a look at Magno and Davy and their magnetic powers. First appearing in Super Mystery Comics by Dynamite Entertainment, Magno is a superhero with abilities such as flying and invulnerability, but also has powerful magnetic powers, which he uses to thwart crime on behalf of the government. Can you imagine how awesome it would be having magnetic powers? On the way to work you could just brush cars aside. Before becoming his sidekick, Davy was a huge fan of Magno and even had his own costume made so he could portray him. After his sister was kidnapped, Magno granted Davy magnetic powers so they could rescue her together. After this event, Davy became Magno's full-time sidekick, with Magno having to grant him powers each time they went out to fight crime. However, eventually Davy had powers of his own. You can also find this pair in a comic book series known as The Four Favourites. And also a recurring fill-in for Magno and Davy is a clown. So if you don't like clowns, I don't recommend it. For our last duo, we take a look at Black Cat comics featuring, yes, you guessed it, the Black Cat. Not to be confused with Spider-Man's Black Cat, Linda Turner was a stuntwoman for a Hollywood studio. After discovering her director to be a Nazi spy, she donned a costume to represent a feline and ended up defeating his spy ring. She enjoyed it so much that she decided to take to crime fighting, using her agility and stunt skills in battle. In a rare twist, she ends up having a teen boy sidekick. This was unheard of back then, for most comic books featured male, adult and teen duos, but this boy's name was Kit Weston. In what is a nod to Robin the Boy Wonder, Kit and his parents are acrobats. After falling to their death in a show due to an arsonist attack from a villain known as the Firebug, Kit is taken in by Linda, whom, impressed by his skills, takes him on as his sidekick, the Black Kitten. Not a name I'd think of using if I was a crime fighter, but that's just me. Unfortunately, the Black Kitten only appeared in 2 issues before the comic book was changed to all horror stories. So there you have it guys, that is my list of lesser known comic book heroes and their sidekicks. Hope you enjoyed the video. A lot of the duos I featured today are from the golden age of comics, but of course there's many more out there, I just simply don't have the time to feature every single one. But what I'm interested to know guys in the comments below is, did you know of any of these duos? And from whatever country you're watching this in, I'd be very interested to find out what comic book heroes and sidekicks you have featured in your country. I think that would be very interesting, because there's only so many I can learn about from the UK, especially as we don't speak all the different foreign languages. So guys, if you like this video, please leave a like, comment and subscribe, and I look forward to catching you next time.